So what's up guys, I am Black Ops Amazing, welcome back to another video on the channel where today we are going to be talking about Group 601. A group that perhaps a lot of you, if you weren't around in the earlier days of Zombies, World at War and Black Ops 1, wouldn't have heard of. We've all heard of Group 935, we have many others such as Division 9, the Ascension Group, all well known, we know exactly what they do, what their purpose is, but Group 601 is mysterious, and besides from a little hint here and there towards their existence, we pretty much know nothing about them, and that's what makes them interesting. Now it was actually COD Lawfax over on Twitter who reminded me of this because I saw a post on my feed, and it brought back a ton of memories because the very first instance we were introduced to them was in Doris's loading screen for World at War. This isn't the main one that you'll see when you load up the game on console or PC. I believe this was a one-off co-op loading screen. I don't even know how you go about seeing this for yourself anymore. This is a really old image, but down the bottom left hand corner you can see it says 601. Now it's interesting because the logo around that is the Group 935 logo, but the numbers inside have been changed to 601. But that wasn't the only time we heard about them. Just give it off memory, in Black Ops 1 Zombies I think it was, or it could have been the end of World War, we also had this which could be found in the game files. The German writing says Stage 2 Strength Through Order. The Group 601 logo in the middle, behind it a mushroom cloud, and then behind that two pylons which seem to be radiating something, giving off energy, which could be a suggestion as to what Group 601 do. And then we also had, as I would call them, semi-teasers in Black Ops 2 Zombies and even BO3. Assets or images reused from these older Group 601 pictures in Zombies and multiplayer. You'll find newspapers on the floor if we just come down and zoom into this section. Underneath the blimp there is the Group 601 logo again. And as I just mentioned, in multiplayer maps such as Berlin Wall on Black Ops 1, if you come into the record shop, you will see vinyls with images that were used in Group 601's promotion. But even with all of this, we still never really knew what Group 601 was, or even if it actually existed. For all we knew, because this first appeared back in World at War, it could have just been an early name for Group 935 before it was changed by Treyarch. But then in 2021, I saw this post on the COD Zombies forum by someone called Ragzatpack. I will leave the link down in the description, where they posted a bunch of images that apparently, and I say that because I haven't seen these anywhere else, I haven't seen anyone else post them or confirm that these are real. So I'm going to say apparently these were old art assets that were intended to be used for the reels in Kino der Toten, but were scrapped and only came to surface recently because of some kind of NDA. Now again, how accurate that is, or if these are from Kino der Toten, I can't say for sure. I will say, looking at the art style of these, it doesn't, in my opinion, quite match the art style of the images that we see that are in game on Kino on the projector. But we have someone getting attacked by a zombie. The writing, Greift, and I've probably pronounced that incorrectly, translates to attack, and some images of Europe and the influence of Group 935 and the Nazis spreading out from Germany. The text translates to Europe first, then the world. Along with these, where we see some undead soldiers marching to war. We know that Group 935 created an undead army, or wanted to, for Nazi Germany. That was the deal that the two had. The state would provide Group 935 with funding to complete their research, do more experiments on their teleportation program, create wonder weapons, and in return, they would provide an undead army. And so the German text here translates to undead soldiers stand together and obey. So if you just had one or two leaks of images that never really appeared in the game, you could probably say, well, maybe Group 601 was an early prototype for Group 935. Maybe it was just an early name for it before Treyarch changed it. That's the reason why we really don't see any evidence of their existence in the game, because they're not supposed to exist. But there's too much here. Group 601 does exist, or did, but why do we never hear about them then? We have all of these other top secret organizations, Division 9, the Ascension Group, the experiments that the Americans were doing in the Pentagon. Why is Group 601 so different? Because we've seen the Group 601 logo inside of the Group 935 logo, because we have all of these images, especially this one with the nuke and then these pylons in the background giving off energy, this would suggest in some way, shape or form, Group 601 were involved in controlling the undead. Now this was also something that Group 935 did in Doris and especially Kino der Toten with Maxis and Sophia, whilst Richtofen was off elsewhere in the 1940s creating his wonder weapons, which was the Wunderwaffe DG2, or scheming against Samantha. Dr. Maxis was at Kino der Toten attempting to create Germany's undead army. And to do this, he needed to learn how to control them. Now, we know, and he later on learnt that that's easily done if you have access to the MPD pyramid, which was on the moon, but at the time, Dr. Maxis didn't know this, and so in Kino, as we see on the projector, he was trying to control them.
Those seats, the screen, they wanted to implant the mind with instructions.
As Dr. Maxis is recording, this first reel shows them working with a chemistry set, trying the different treatments to control the undead.
The test subjects have been undergoing treatment for 5 days with little progress. I have been assured that given time, the programming will take hold.
In his second recording, whilst he's talking about breaking through to the zombies' subconscious, we see zombies on screen with the numbers 115, meaning element 115, which is what creates the undead, and the numbers 1110.
In the past weeks, we have made great strides in breaking through to their subconscious. I have had the projectionists make edits to the film. These changes have been very effective.
And in his final recording, he talks about having a breakthrough with one of the zombies. He finally figures out how to control the undead, but as we know, it goes wrong and ends up biting his assistant Sophia, and then being put down.
Subject 26 has had a breakthrough. He is responding to the treatment and following basic instructions. The violent outbursts have been greatly reduced, and given time, we feel this method of treatment will be 100% effective in most cases.
But if these images were also supposed to be played on the projector in Kino, and the storyline in Kino der Toten is completely revolved around controlling the undead, that would tell us that was Group 601's professional field. And going back to this image, the pylons radiating energy represents control. So if that's what Group 601 were up to, well, why were they so hidden? Because Group 935 weren't too far off that. If they also took part in controlling the undead along with broader experiments, if Group 601 were more focused in on just the control side, why did Troyot never expand on their story? There was an old conspiracy back in the day that perhaps Group 601 were Richtofen's sub-faction within Group 935. We know back during the 1940s in Dries, Richtofen betrayed Group 935 and its leader, Dr. Maxis. He was going behind his back doing his own experiments, which was all a part of his grand scheme to take control of the zombies for himself, but Richtofen, along with Dr. Schuster, along with some other Group 935 scientists, actually ended up achieving quite a lot. So much, in fact, that they built a base on the moon. This isn't a small operation, a lot of planning went into this, so Richtofen would have needed his own mini organisation, which was suggested to have been called Group 601, a sub-faction of 935. Also in Black Ops 2 Zombies, once Richtofen had taken control of the undead and he was inside of the MPD pyramid, when Maxis tried to scupper Richtofen's plans by sending 3 missiles from the moon to destroy the Earth, causing it to become fractured and broken, that severed Richtofen's connection, meaning all throughout the game Richtofen was communicating with the transit characters, specifically Stuhlinger, to attempt to regain full control, and he did this by getting them to activate the polarization devices in his favour. The polarization devices were these towers that we can find in each and every BO2 map. So there was the pylon in Transit, the big tower in Die Rise, the tower that was above ground in Buried. Activating these pylons was all a part of Richtofen's plan in BO2. And what do we see on this Group 601 image in the background? 2 pylons. The big plot hole in this would be, well, this was during World at War Zombies, before the Earth was destroyed and before Richtofen even knew he needed to activate these pylons in order for him to regain control. So if the Earth hadn't been destroyed yet, then how could these pylons have been a part of Richtofen's plan during World at War and Black Ops 1? And well, in Classified, there is a cipher, which once decoded is a list from Richtofen to the Pentagon that is a part of Operation Stapler. If you don't know what Operation Stapler was, it was where a bunch of scientists from Nazi Germany went to work for the Americans and also the Russians. But as a part of that agreement between Richtofen and the Americans, where he would hand the Americans some of his German scientists, such as Dr. Schuster, in return, Richtofen had some personal demands. Those were 1 portrait of him to be hung in the Pentagon, 1 American baseball signed by your Babe Ruth, $20 American, 2 pennies, 4 nickels, 2 dimes, 2 quarters, 4 ones, 1 fives and 1 10, 1 American hot dog, 1 American teddy bear, Teddy Roosevelt's mustache, and 1 polarization device to be constructed. So even before Richtofen had taken control of the undead, even before the Earth had been destroyed and he was guiding the transit crew to reactivate the polarization devices, before that Richtofen made a deal with the Pentagon telling them to construct a polarization device for him, which tells us the towers were always a part of Richtofen's plan. So going back to this image where we see these pylons in this Group 601 logo, well, it all comes back to Richtofen. Could Group 601 have been a sub-faction created by Richtofen to counter Group 935? and the reason we never heard of it is because it wasn't this big group, it was personal to him, and once he achieved his goals on Moon and took control of the Undead, or even the end of BO2 Buried, when he was unsuccessful and Maxis gained power, Group 601 wasn't needed, so was never mentioned. I think that's an interesting theory, and that's definitely all it really is, but if that's not the case because of Group 601's clear, quite close connection to Group 935, in terms of their goals to control the Undead, well, did it play a role in the Derice Massacre? Now, if you've never heard of this, I wouldn't be surprised, because it's not mentioned in the Canorium or Radio's documents that you will find in game, at least not on the zombies side, but in the campaign mission on Black Ops 1 WMD, you find this document that says February 20th, 1968, Memorandum to Richard Kane from Jack Ryan. Subject, update on GKM analysis. Analysis of Operation Intelligence has shown that the Gorky Korolev Medical Company, the GKM, which is based in Prague, is being used to funnel the Soviet chemical weapon Nova 6 into North Vietnam and Laos using commercial cargo planes. We believe GKM to be the front company that supplied the Nova 6 to suspected agents within the US border. GKM is registered to one Pavel Gorky, a cousin of Colonel Lev Kravchenko. The team is constructing a profile on Gorky, but we have confirmed that following the end of World War II, he was involved in the massacre at Derice and the resulting standoff with American forces. So this is the only time that a massacre at Derice is mentioned, and funnily enough this document isn't even found in a zombies map, it's in a campaign mission, but we do know the campaign and zombies are connected, a lot now, but back in the day more loosely, but still connected. But we are told Pavel Gorky, who is the cousin of Colonel Lev Kravchenko, who is the man that is registered to GKM, a company that is a funnel for transferring Nova 6 gas into North Vietnam and Laos, but Gorky was involved in the massacre at Derice and the resulting standoff with the Americans. Now, we know about the standoff with the Americans between them and the Russians when Group 935 was disbanded in November of 1945. A few months later, both the US and the Soviet Union invaded these abandoned bases and recovered all of Group 935's resources. Occasionally, the Soviets and the Americans would be at these abandoned bases at the same time, so there would be a standoff between the two, who would get what. But for Gorky to be involved in the massacre at Derice is an interesting one, because the first thing that comes to my mind is the massacre that took place when it became overrun by the Undead, but as far as we're aware, no other group or person was involved in this. It was just the zombies simply overrunning the facility because of Samantha. And we can hear from a radio that we found in the map from H. Porter the exact moment that Derice becomes overrun.
But I'm all out of hope. Auf Wiedersehen, my friend.
Warning, the shield is now active.
Damn it!
Scientists
I can't find my pills.
designated materials and report to the barracks.
They are coming.
This is not a drill.
I must do what I must do.
The shield is now active.
God forgive us all.
To destroy the designated materials and report to the barracks. This is not a drill. Warning, the shield is now active. To destroy the designated materials and report to the barracks. This is not a drill. Warning, the shield is now active. Scientists are to destroy the designated materials and report to the barracks. This is not a drill. Warning, the shield is now active. To destroy the designated materials and report to the barracks.
The man in the radio is H. Porter. He sounds the alarm, warning everyone that the facility had become compromised and that they should destroy everything. Shortly after we hear, he actually kills himself before the zombies get to him, but the Undead completely overrun Derice, killing everyone there, turning them into the Undead, but that was the extent of the Derice massacre. However, this document tells us that GKM was involved, and that's where it gets more interesting, because I don't know if any of you guys will remember this, but back in 2010 for Black Ops there was a viral marketing website called GK Nova 6, but Nova 6 was developed by Nazi, Soviet and coalescent scientists. Group 935 worked with the Nazis at the beginning worked with the Soviets, the two, their scientists, created Nova 6, yet in the end it is the Soviets stealing Group 935's research, and potentially Group 601's research. Everyone wanted their own Undead army. Later on, the Soviets would go on to set up the Ascension Group. Their goals weren't too dissimilar from Group 935's. They were to send monkeys into outer space, create wonder weapons such as the Gersh device, do experiments with teleportation. The Americans, with the help of Richtofen, did their own teleportation experiments, tried to create their own versions of the Undead and wonder weapons. Everybody wanted to copy what Group 935 had done, and potentially Group 601. There are two takes from this. From what we can gather, Either they were a subgroup created by Richtofen as a part of his grand scheme, I think that one's less likely, or they were still a subgroup of 935 but were specifically dedicated to mind control, or they never really existed at all. So there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, drop a like rating, that's always really appreciated. We are close to 700,000 subscribers, so again, if you're not subscribed, I think something like 50-60% of you aren't. If you could just hit that subscribe button, it takes 2 seconds. I really appreciate that more than anything. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.